Welcome to another edition of the Membership World podcast, and I'm delighted to have somebody very different now. We often talk
Mm.
about sort of trade associations and professional membership bodies, but today we're going to talk about the Friends model, which I think is going to be really fascinating. And I'm delighted to have with me today Siti Osman from the Royal College of Music, and Siti is the Development Operations Officer of the Royal College of Music. So really pleased to have you with us today on the Membership World podcast.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So before we get sort of deep dive into some of the areas around the challenges maybe you've had during COVID, and maybe how you've connected with the friends and consumers alike. Just for our benefit of our listeners and viewers, tell us a little
Sure,
bit about the RCM.
sure. Again, thank you for having me. And I know it's a bit different from your usual podcast. So the Royal College of Music is the top conservatoire in the UK and Europe. In the last 6 years, dare I say, in the QS University ranking. So we attract local as well as international talents. There's about Our students come from a range of 56 nations. Um,
Wow.
yes, that's right. So we have almost 900 students, and we have to be competitive compared to some other conservatoires who offer studies for free. We are still fee driven. We are working very hard towards making it zero fees. That's our ambition, our vision. So working hard towards that. um, how that relates to the Friends, it's a loyalty scheme, is basically trying to attract visitors to the Royal College of Music, be it parents, be it friends, family, neighbors, to get to know the college on a more intimate level, shall I say, anything from regular news, what's happening, events, talks, because we still are a conservatoire and we have great academics, great research, colleagues as well, and generate ideas, with our stakeholders, internal, external, our neighbors. Yeah, so that's the ambition,
Mm.
really, trying to get people closer to the college.
Yeah. And how long have you had the Friends model in place?
Oh, way before I started, Gordon. So I dare say probably more than 10 years. And I'm being very conservative about that.
Yeah, yeah. And did you find that, I mean, it's very modest, isn't it? It's only like £45 a year, isn't it? Or something as low as that.
Yes, absolutely. And if you've been good, it could be £40 a year with a direct debit. And that that element, the direct debit incentive, is not unusual, as you well know, in the, shall we say, on a more consumer level compared to a trade level.
Mm.
Because the benefits, as we mentioned before, more transactional. You can see them quite immediately, and compared to the motivations of your members or your friends are very different if you're a professional
Mm.
or a tradesperson, obviously. I'm going to use the word transactional a lot because that's what this relationship starts with. And it's basically compared to a trade person where, for example, I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Fundraising. So that's a professional association. I get discounts for certain workshops and events. And that's great because that's a progression for me professionally. It contributes to my career
Of
and
course.
my progression path. So, but if you are a consumer, be it you're a culture lover or music lover, having that connection with your venue or the person, the college that you support, is that you get priority information about certain events that's coming up, and thereby you get choice tickets, choice dates, and with that, what how the venue or the college benefit is that we get ticket sales, we get bumps on seats. The students who do get graded for the concerts that they take part in get real life audience and get that validation that their rehearsals, hours of rehearsals, their teaching is correct, is on the mark, is on point, as the kids say nowadays.
Yeah.
So that's a circular
Economy, almost.
that's it, almost. That's it. I was hesitant to use that word because it is and it's not quite, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, no, indeed. So the benefits, of course, as you've highlighted there, are that they get access to various events, exclusive access sometimes. Do you do events only for the friends?
That's a good question. We do a lot of them take the form of events. You're quite right, simply because we're conservatoire, so we're performance driven. There are workshops, there are talks. Um, for example, pre-COVID time, we would have term events for friends. And we have 4 tiers. So you have a single friend, then you have a best friend, you have a joint best friend model, and yeah, a
I
joint
love
friend
it.
model. Yeah, exactly. So, you can have A and B together. So, or you can a lot of people like to come as a single person simply because of the demographic that we have as well, simply because that's connected to the music that we produce, which is classical. So it's an interesting study, to be very honest with you.
Yeah.
It's exciting for me, at least.
No, of course. I mean, do you segment your friend in terms of the database of who they are, what age group? I mean, I'm assuming quite a lot of them ABC ones, highly educated people. But I don't know that for sure. I'm just maybe assuming it.
Yes, 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 absolutely. So we do segment our general audience. So that basically is a reflection of our friends as well.
Of course.
So yes, so they are what they call you have a mix of the metro culturals, I believe. That's how the audience survey classify them as, and the culture seekers. And they tend to be retired, semi-retired. They tend to be in and around London area and the home counties. Um, and before the pandemic, that was pretty evident. But now with the pandemic, when everybody hop on the digital bandwagon, so that you know that area, that reach, that geolocation has expanded exponentially. It's not just for us.
Well, I wonder. I was going to ask you about that, really, about some of the challenges that you would have faced. I mean, lots of associations were you'd on the face of it think had very a difficult some difficulties in terms of recruitment and retention, and people weren't working in their offices, so they weren't able to receive content in the same way that they may have otherwise done. But on the flip side of that, by having a much more digital approach, many organizations found that their opportunities were much wider, being able to reach people quicker, use social media in a way that perhaps they hadn't perhaps amplified it before. So interested to find out what changed for you in the last couple of years in your role, good, bad, indifferent.
Sounds like a Western, that. Yes, so basically it's we did I wouldn't lie, we did have an attrition rate, but surprisingly, and a relief to me, is it's not massive. We've got like a fallout rate of about maybe 40, so that's about 10% of our base. And that's understandable because, again, going back to this model of friends or membership, basically loyalty programming, is that because it's highly transactional, what you pay is you paying for what you can get.
Quite,
When you can't get that live performances, you don't want to pay for it,
of course. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But conversely, Gordon, like what you said, like we pointed out, it is such an attractive proposition for, less than £4 a month. You can be a member of the Royal College of Music. And because of that, so some members do let it run if they're on direct debit, they don't cancel it. Some of them say, you know what, I'll do it because it just goes to the students. And the students are genuinely affected. Like everything else, they can do their second gigs, which is teaching, or waiting tables because all the restaurants were closed. So all these alternative income avenues for them are shut off because of the pandemic.
Of
So
course.
therefore, even if you're contributing £4 a month, say as a single friend, you are giving towards a good cause.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that because I
Mm,
I think so often, even though you said transactional, um, when people realise what the great work that you do, there is a sense of say, well, you could cancel this, but actually we're doing some great things to support our students, and therefore there's actually an emotional attachment to that fee, isn't there? And that's when people become part of an association or a membership body, and I've done quite a lot of work in this, is one of the top reasons that people stay is a sense of belonging. It really, really is right up the top there. Sometimes it's an accreditation and the badge, and I would suggest that that's also very high on the reasons that why people have stayed so loyal is because they like to be associated. If they've got a membership card or they've got something that can, it's a bit of a show off, really, isn't it? I'm a member of the Royal College of Music. And I must admit, before I even came on the website, I was expecting it to be significantly higher. So it just proves that the value of the brand is higher than maybe even what you're charging. But no, I think it's really quite exciting the whole friends model and the fact that you've got one with bringing somebody else along. I think that's really good. So what? Now, I know that when we were talking before the podcast, we were talking a little bit about ambassadors. So you've got people that are effectively promote. Tell me a little bit about how that works.
right. So our ambassadors, for at least for the Friends level, are very, shall I say, informal, right? So it's more of a word of mouth. We do have ambassadors, brand ambassadors, on the high level of the philanthropy category. Those are slightly more formal, and they are very location specific, or shall we say continent specific. But for the friends, to be honest with you, Gordon, I mean, this is worth its weight in gold. Are the long-standing friends who have supported the college for, like we mentioned before in our informal chat, since the 1960s, or even as recent as 1980s, shall we say, because they live there. This is their neighborhood, they can just pop in for a lunchtime concert, say, which we do have most of the days. And now that the our capital project has just completed, by the way, if you're not aware, and that's a 25 million capital project called More Music. And we've refurbished the RCM Museum, which has been given the designated status by the Arts Council England. So the museum itself has music, chamber music every Friday that our neighbors who tend to be friends, and my ambition is, I'm going ahead of myself. I think one of your questions was the future of it, is to recruit more of those because they
Mm,
are the best brand ambassadors one could ever hope for,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because they give us the footfall, they give us, the like, oh, when are you going to have this next? So, it's fantastic. And one of our supporters, friends, and obviously with every membership program, professional um, or consumer membership programs, have events, and they do change as well, the events program, for whatever reason. And ours go through the same changes, and consumers' behavior do not change as much as your loyalty programming, right? So we have to educate them, dare I say, about the changes. And um, we have one a long-term supporter, and when I first got into the role, and he saw I was the first, fresh pair of ears, and went, "Oh, why don't you have this? Why don't you have that?" So I turned it around. I said, "Well, we have changed the model. I'm sure it's not something that you're interested to hear, our strategic, path. But what would be of interest to you that could continue that engagement?" So he told me his wish list. I said, "I can only fulfill one of them." And he says, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah, I'm being realistic." So in the end, we have this open dialogue, and turns out it comes from a place of love. And we managed to cultivate him now that he is on a philanthropic level. He's giving to the college now about 30,000 a year for the next 3 years.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And he brings his friends now, his neighbors. He's a member of a neighborhood scheme. So, like I said, it's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, and also I think he probably loves the idea that he's the center of this and bringing people together. I mean, I'm a member of a private members club,
Right.
and I'm an ambassador to that, and I must admit, I do like showing people around. Even though I don't own the club or I'm not the management team, I feel like it's my home from home. So it's a very smart approach to think about ambassador programs, and
Absolutely.
highlighting things. The other thing I was going to ask you, just while you're talking, have you ever done any sort of brand partnerships with other organizations that potentially, where your audience is totally aligned? And I'm thinking of maybe fine wine. I'm thinking of luxury travel or something. And I'm just wondering if there are any events where some of those other brands could pay to be part of such a community.
Oh, that's interesting. That is something that at least I haven't encountered during my tenure at the RCM. And I'm not saying that it can't be explored. Definitely, we seemingly being in SW7, we are you know, in that area where affluence is the connection with the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea.
Of
But
course.
having said that, we have an outreach program under what we call the RCM Sparks, because I'm doing a pitch here for the college. We do outreach program for hard to reach communities, because there are really hard hit areas
Mm,
in Royal Borough, Kensington and Chelsea, even though seemingly it's a very affluent area. So we do outreach programs as well with our Sparks. Junior department. That's a Saturday and Sunday program. So the college is basically used up Monday to Friday, and Monday to Friday training future musicians. Saturday, Sunday outreach programs, and
yeah, that sounds great.
that's from cradle. So that's the idea. Eventually, it will be a complete full circle. The Friends membership, where we'll try to get them on that path when they get the children into the college to learn music.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, that's great. That's super. Well, I have to say, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, Situ. Love your enthusiasm for your role, and what the Royal College is doing is amazing. And I'd love to maybe come to an event. You've put
Yeah,
it
come and visit, Gordon.
you've
See it
you've
for yourself. Don't
you've,
take my word for it.
you've put it on my radar where it hadn't already. So thank you once again for taking the time to be on our podcast today.
Thank you for having me again. Great to chat.